Calling all trainers. You are summoned to the greatest challenge ever. Prepare to witness the rarest and most powerful of all. This fall, training is over, and the ultimate showdown begins. Kids WB presents the first Pokemon movie ever. Catch it November 12th.
Pikachu.
Only in theaters.
And unlike Doug's first movie earlier in the year, there's a reason why this is called Pokemon the First Movie, because they had all these movies ready to go. Doug's first movie put that out there thinking that it was going to be that big of a success, and they were going to make sequels after that, and they never made another movie after that one. But Pokemon had the movies already ready to go, so they called it Pokemon the First Movie. And basically you got the story here of a group of scientists offered funding into genetic research if they agree to try to clone the greatest ever Pokemon, Mew. The end result is successful as Mewtwo is born. However, Mewtwo is bitter about his purpose in life, kills his masters, and in order to become the greatest, he throws open a challenge to the world to battle him and his Pokemon. Ash and his friends are one of the people that get brought into this. They pass the first test and prepare for battle. However, they soon find out after further cloning and Mewtwo's ultimate plan to take over the world. So, before we get into this, I kind of have to remind myself of my nostalgia, because I did grow up around this time when Pokemon was the thing, in the late 90s, early 2000s. I have at least some recollection from where it all began. I might have been somewhat of a fan growing up in the time period. Anyone who knew me in high school and elementary school knew I was pretty hardcore into Pokemon at the time, but then again, most kids back then were. I watched the cartoon series. It was coming on just as we were getting Kids WB up where I live. And the movie was coming around the time to capture my zeitgeist. So naturally, as I got older, Pokemon and I went our separate ways. I really was into mostly the first 4 seasons of the show. And then, like most things, I moved on with my life and went on, so on and so forth. And I did go see Pokemon the First Movie in theaters. And I had the VHS. I used to watch it all the time. But I grew out of it, too, like I said. But when this came back to theaters in 2016, I figured, what the hell, I'll go back to see it just for nostalgia's sake. And let me just say right now, the movie does not hold up well with time whatsoever. It has not aged whatsoever. The story for this makes no sense whatsoever. And it's not like the movie isn't trying. The whole movie is centering around Mewtwo trying to find what his purpose is in the world after being the first genetically created Pokemon. And you can understand the character's dilemma. He's trying to figure out what his purpose is. And we're not really given a reason to buy into his plight, because the movie starts off with him literally killing off the scientists who created him solely because he's been used as an experiment. Now, as I later found out down the road, in the original Japanese version, there was actually a reason why Mewtwo was cloned. The scientist was trying to find a way to clone his deceased daughter, and through visions, Mewtwo is told by the daughter that he's more than just a clone, but his own person. Which would have made it a much better reason for that to happen in the original film, to lose it in the lab, instead of just snapping and blowing up everybody like they did in the American version. Even the prequel they tack on the video doesn't make a whole lot of sense either. And on top of that, Mewtwo is supposed to be a Pokemon with psychic abilities, and yet, shortly after the explosion, he's approached by the show's villain, Giovanni, leader of Team Rocket, to team up with him. And by team up, Mewtwo learns his purpose was to be a weapon for Giovanni's benefit. He's supposed to be psychic, and yet he can never figure out that he's being used by the bad guy. So not only that, but his whole purpose in the second half of the movie is so hypocritical as hell. I mean, his whole idea is that enslaving Pokemon is wrong, and what happens? He enslaves Pokemon, and in the ultimate form of hypocrisy, captures all the trainers' Pokemon with his own Pokeballs to create his own series of clones so they can take over the world, of course. And not only that, the plan makes no sense whatsoever. And the problem is that the movie builds on some pretty interesting and cool setups, like the scene where Pikachu is trying to escape from Mewtwo's Pokeballs. That's a good, pretty intense scene. The visual look of the island's pretty impressive. The cloning machine has a little bit of an H.R. Geiger feel to it. It's really cool looking. And the whole idea of Mewtwo and Mew going to combat each other while the clones and the others duke it out sounds like it could be epic and awesome to see, but then the ending starts. And boy, it's one hell of a cluster, you know. Where do we begin? It starts off with this lame song playing over scenes of Pokemon not even really fighting, just pushing into each other, and that's about it. And then just when you thought the hypocrisy levels couldn't get any higher for this, the next 10 minutes is nothing but a padded out message about how fighting is wrong and how Mewtwo can't understand why this is wrong. And I'm sorry, but for a franchise that exists solely because the monsters fight with each other to just all of a sudden now say it's wrong to fight, That's the ultimate form of hypocrisy, and it just pads on and on and on, and it makes no sense whatsoever why it's here. If there was a scene in the film where they show the difference between a normal Pokemon fight and the type of fighting what Mewtwo is trying to do, then it would make sense, but there's nothing different about how the Pokemon fight near the end and the fight from the beginning of the film, and so none of this talk about how fighting is wrong makes any sense whatsoever. And then Ash has to intervene, gets turned into stone. Again, never explain how that happens. It just happens when Mew and Mewtwo attack at the same time. And after all this negativity I've been giving the ending, I'm not going to lie. When Pikachu cried and tried to resuscitate him and then he realized that he couldn't do it, it's genuinely heartbreaking, mostly because of what those two have been through since they met in the beginning of the series and all that Ash has done to protect Pikachu. It's a good emotional scene that does feel genuine and effective. But then they ruin it. The movie destroys it with this ridiculous bull about how all the tears of the Pokemon somehow brings him back to life. Yeah, how does that work? I mean, if you're going to go the Peter Pan route where you have to say, I believe in fairies, like, you have to be a little bit more clever than that. Care Bears 2 tried to do that, and that was not clever either. And if I'm saying that that's not as clever as Care Bears was, then that's a serious problem here. But again, the Japanese version kind of explains it a little bit better by saying that the tears are the key to life, which is still off, but it at least serves as a better reasoning for what this movie does. And so they stop, Mewtwo and Mew stop fighting, they all fly off with the clone Pokemon, and they all live happily ever after, and then, just for the fun of it, Mewtwo wipes everybody's memory, and just like that, the entire movie becomes pointless. Mewtwo manages to put everything back in the same morph area they were at the start of the movie, with Mewtwo's storm still going on, which, if Mewtwo had wiped all the memories, why couldn't they go back to where they were before they got the invitation to the island? Why back at the war? Why would the storm still be going on at this point? And that just makes this movie make no sense whatsoever. The plot holes in here make no sense whatsoever, and it's a disappointment watching it all these years later. As a kid, yeah, you get into it because you see the Pokemon on the big screen, and you could just nowadays, you could clearly see that 4Kids had no real intention on making this make any sense because they knew they were going to make the money from this. They just put this out as quickly as they could. This thing came out over a year after Pokemon made it into the zeitgeist here in America, and they put it out so they can get it out within the shows and trading cards popularities. It's the literal form of a cash grab at its worst. Now, at times, the animation does look nice, the music does its job nicely, there are some good ideas overall. The movie overall is just a failure because of a bad story, bad motivations, a forced and hypocritical ending with a message that goes completely against the spirit of what the purpose of the original storyline of the franchise was supposed to be. And the end result is a 100% pointless film. The funny thing is, the sequels that came after that were much better and more in line with what you would expect from the Pokemon mythos, and those ones were not as successful as the first film was, which is a shame, but we'll get to those ones as we move along here. But if you actually if you're actually going to watch a Pokemon movie again, go watch the other ones. Go watch 2000. Go watch 3. Hell, go watch Detective Pikachu. You're going to get a lot more than you'll get with this movie right here. I mean, seeing it in theaters was pretty cool, but as a kid, as a grown-up watching it again, it does not hold up well over time, unfortunately. So that's Pokemon the first movie.
They're back to save the world by popular demand. An ancient legend is coming true. A force with the power that could threaten the entire balance of the world. This summer, prepare for an all-new challenge and see how one person will make all the difference. July 21st, get ready for the greatest adventure they've ever had to face with Pokemon you've never seen before. Kids WB presents Pokemon the Movie 2000.
Pikachu!
Only in theaters July 21st. Find out about the all-new Pokemon trading card game card giveaway and other Pokemon 2000 events at theater lobby displays and on the new Pokemon website.
kind of interesting how the Pokemon series, the more movies they made, the less popular they became. Despite the fact that the more movies they made, the more better they got. I mean, this is actually a far superior film than the first Pokemon movie, but I'll delve into that in just a little bit here. But Pokemon the Movie 2000 comes less than 6 months after the surprising success of Pokemon the first movie, and because they already knew that there was going to be tons of these movies coming, no wonder they called the first one the first movie. But the story here is that you basically have two parts here. Just like in the last film, you have Pikachu's, just like it has Pikachu's Vacation as the short film that comes before it. You have Pikachu's Rescue Adventure that has a story that takes place after the events of the second season, when Tracy joins the crew and Brock leaves, and in the movie they enter Shimoni Island. The movie itself, they enter the island of Shimoni Island, while they're to discover the 3 legendary Pokemon, bird Pokemon, Articuno, Zapdos, and Moltres. Meanwhile, there's a collector named Lawrence III who attempts to steal the 3 Pokemon to awaken Lugia, which proves dangerous for the legendary Pokemon, Lugia, and Ash himself, who is being described as the Chosen One. Hence why the film has the subtitle The Power of One. Like I said, it's an improvement over the previous film. Like I think the short is much better than the previous film. The film itself is really well done. I think it has a really fun concept overall. Like this idea that Ash is the chosen one, and he has to basically. I mean, they don't really give a good idea of what he has to do. He just basically has to stop the bad guy from collecting all these birds to awaken this creature overall. And I do like the fact that they actually have Team Rocket actually teaming up with Ash and the gang this time around. I think it's fun when they kind of break the rules like that and have them work together to stop the big baddie in this movie. And I think they did a pretty good job with that. Plus, the animation I think works a lot better in this one than the first movie did. There aren't as many WTF plot elements that are thrown in here, stories or subplots that don't make a whole lot of sense. I think this one does a much better job of handling that. But like I said, it does get better as the series goes on with these first couple of movies. Because I think the next film, the one that was the least successful out of the 3 by Warner Brothers, probably is the overall best one. But we'll eventually get to that when we get to Pokemon 3. But it's an entertaining movie. I think it's a well-made film for the most part. But really, I think the one element that I really take away from this isn't the movie itself, but the soundtrack. The soundtrack for this movie is surprisingly really damn good, and it has a really great song by Donna Summer, The Power of One. Then you got all these different songs from the artists at the time. You got like Dream Street, Westlife, Youngstown, featuring Nobody's Angel, O-Town, the B-52s, Weird Al Yankovic has a song in here. Like, I know most of these people because I grew up around this time when they were very popular. I mean, I was like 11 years old when this came out, so. And I watched Kids WB a lot too. I was a fan of Pokemon when this came out, and fittingly, once I joined the Pokemon phenomenon, that's when it started to take the nosedive. I mean, I don't know, but the soundtrack is really good. Like the Power of One song is one you can still listen to this very day. It's a really damn good song that still holds up after all these years. It's really one of the best Donna Summer songs overall. The movie is just a ton of fun. It's a really good, well-made film. It's definitely cleaning up a lot of the problems from the first movie. Granted, there are still some flaws here and there, but the music overall is really good. The animation overall is really good. It's much more fun than the previous movie, and I think that really shows the elevation of these films going forward, which is interesting because around this time, the Pokemon zeitgeist was kind of lowering and lowering as the seasons went on, mostly because they were kind of like, it felt like they were kind of changing the rules around as the show was continuing on. Plus, you had some competition coming in the way, not only from Kids WB, but also Fox Kids, because Digimon was coming up and was turning out to be just as successful as Pokemon, which we'll eventually get to them as we have a Digimon movie coming up later in the year. But yeah, Pokemon the Movie 2000, I think, is definitely a much more successful movie in terms of what they were trying to accomplish compared to the first film. But like I said, it does get better as we get to the third film and the last film released by Warner Brothers. But we'll eventually get to that one in 2001. But I like Pokemon the Movie 2000. I think it's a ton of fun.
If you thought you knew everything about Pokemon, you can get ready to face the unknown. Pokemon 3, the movie. You can discover the secrets of the spell of the unknown this Friday. Rated G. Also playing with Pokemon 3, the movie, the short film Pikachu and Pichu. You can see dozens of Pokemon in their first ever animated appearance.
So in this film, you have a professor, and it's Professor Shuri, who's a scientist looking for rare Pokemon. He reads a storybook to his daughter Mii about the powerful Pokemon Entei, and Shuri is currently searching for the hieroglyph Pokemon the Unknown, which are literally called the Unknown. And while searching through some of these ancient artifacts, Shuri awakens the Unknown and is sucked into it. Mii next awakens Unknown while looking for her father, and Unknown bonds with her and turns her mansion into a crystal tower. The crystallization begins to spread. Unknown lives to serve Mii and creates an Entei with the personality of her father to make her happy. When Mii next deserves a mother, Entei kidnaps Pokemon as Ash's mother to give to her. And so Ash, Misty, and Brock, who was back with this one, see, that's the one thing. That's the weird thing about Pokemon at this point. Let me just finish this up real quick. So Ash, Misty, and Brock, of course, and of course Pikachu set out to get her back. And yeah, like I said, this was a weird point in time because, they made a big deal in like late '99, early 2000 about Brock leaving the Pokemon and being replaced by Tracy. In fact, the second movie has Tracy in there, and you see Brock in there for a little bit of a cameo. And then Brock comes back into the picture. Tracy that is no longer around here anymore. It's a weird situation going on here, and that's probably because of the way that Pokemon was kind of going at this point in terms of the American audience's appreciation for Pokemon, because by this point, it wasn't where it was almost 18 months ago. Because by this point in time, the Johto Journey was I think, taking place. I think this takes place at the end of the third season of the show. And by that point, Pokemon was not the big success that it was a couple years prior to this. And audiences were really kind of really losing their love for this, because this thing crashed and burned at the box office. It was not a massive hit here in the U.S. It was a hit overseas, but it provided less of a significant box office compared to the other films of the series. But then again, you had a much better family film coming out at the time with Spy Kids, and the film didn't really do as well as people wanted to, and it ended up having Warner Brothers basically letting Pokemon go off to another studio. For a while, it was actually a couple films released by Disney under Miramax when they still owned Disney. But this film in particular, the craziest thing about this whole thing is that despite the box office numbers being bad, the appeal of Pokemon dropping at this point, this is probably the best Pokemon movie they've done. I mean, it's a heavy storyline. It really does have a heavy flow to it. I mean, the storyline about the little girl and this professor who, it's really heartfelt when you really watch this movie. I mean, there's no real villains in this movie. There are no there's nothing like extravagant in this movie. Like, one person has to be this one to rise to the occasion, but it's just a story about something that happens, and you really do get invested in the storyline of this movie, and you do get really invested in the characters, and the Pokemon characters in this movie feel like real characters in this movie. I feel like these movies got better and better right after the first movie. The second one showed a lot of showed a lot of promise to it, and this is the one where it looks like a simple Pokemon storyline. It doesn't feel like it needs to be too big or too extravagant for its own good. It only needs to be bigger when it needs to be bigger. And they do a pretty good job of expanding the animation in this movie. This one's probably got the best overall animation in general in this particular movie. And it really does show in here. There's a lot of moments in here that still kind of hold up pretty well for a film that's over 20 years old. You do get invested in the storyline. You do get invested in the battles, which actually feel like real-life Pokemon battles, and don't feel like something that has to be overblown and over the top or anything. But it leads to a lot of awesome things. And sadly, really, nobody went to go see this movie, which is a shame, because they really did miss out on something special with this film. This is actually a well-made movie that really does feel like the best of what a Pokemon movie should be like. It also helps that you have a lot of great voice work in this particular movie, not just from, of course, the original English cast of Pokemon, Veronica Taylor, Rachel Lillis, Eric Stewart, but you also have Dan Green, who would later go on to be a significant part of Yu-Gi-Oh!, playing Entei in this movie, and he is very good in this performance. Like, you really do buy the connection between him and Molly, who's the little girl in here. I think when I read the plot description for this was actually the Japanese version of it, because I said like Shuri, and he's actually named Sully in the English dub, and Molly Spencer in the English version, and Molly in the English version as well. But it's a really solid storyline, and you really do get invested in it. And there is a lot about this movie that works compared to the other Pokemon movies. Like, this one works the best out of all of them, and it's hilarious how this is the best one, and yet nobody went to go see it because they were just kind of done with Pokemon at this point. I mean, the zeitgeist had kind of died down pretty quickly, and like I said, there's still a ton of movies that have yet to be released, and I don't think any of them ever come close to what this movie was able to do. I still think this probably is the best overall Pokemon movie, and it's one that sadly nobody really knows about for the most part. Like, nobody went to go see it. I'm hoping that it has found an audience over time through like DVD and videos and all that, but that probably did, and I think a lot of people would agree that this would be easily the best of the three movies, no question about it. But if you have not seen this one, I'd say definitely check it out, because it's definitely much better than a lot of people gave it credit for. I think a lot of people missed out on something really special when this came out. Not much more to say about that one. Pokemon 3 The Moves.
On video, Pokemon Mewtwo Returns. From the far reaches of the Johto region, an old nemesis returns. I am Mewtwo. To battle his fiercest opponent ever. You. In a brand new movie adventure.
Pikachu!
Mewtwo returns in the sequel to Pokemon the first movie. Do not test the limits of my power. Pokemon Mewtwo Returns. Look for it on video cassette and DVD.
So, as they indicate, this is a direct-to-video sequel to Pokemon the first movie, where you have Ash, Misty, and Brock continuing to explore the Johto region and having to rescue Pikachu after Team Rocket kidnaps him, and the search leads them to find the hidden plateau where Mewtwo had established a haven with the clone Pokemon from the previous movie. And the evil Giovanni is planning to recapture Mewtwo and renew his efforts to create an army of bioengineered Pokemon. And aided by the reluctant Meowth, Ash and his friends defeat Giovanni and his henchmen. This is one of those ones that feels really weird, because when I saw this, I thought it was something that Kids WB made themselves. I didn't think this was something that was made specifically by the people who made the Pokemon anime, but no, this was made by them. It came out in Japan in 2000, but came to video late in December of 2001, and actually includes a mini feature called The Uncut Story of Mewtwo's Origin, which was a 10-minute sequence that was originally cut from Mewtwo Strikes Back, which we talked about before, where basically the concept of that is that they explain the backstory of Mewtwo's origin. If you don't remember, they actually had a reason why Mewtwo was cloned, and the scientist who created him was basically trying to find a way to clone his deceased daughter, and through visions, Mewtwo is told by the daughter that he's more than just a clone, but his own person, which makes for a better reason for him to lose it at the lab instead of just snapping and blowing up everybody like he did in the regular version. That basically comes into this version here. It was actually cut from the original version of the American dub of the first movie because of the G rating, and they thought it was too dark and morose, which this was 1999. I think you could still get away with a G rating, but I digress. But as far as this movie goes, it's fine. I mean, I think it does a better job of telling the story and going more into Mewtwo's backstory in general, because this was something that was originally intended for the first film. And I like how it even makes fun of the fact that, like, the whole thing at the end of Pokemon the first movie, where Mewtwo just wipes everybody's memory away, and they actually make fun of that in this particular movie here. And I'll give it to Dan Green, who comes in as Mewtwo in this film, who is the voice of Yu-Gi-Oh! He does a pretty good job of handling the role in the English dub, and I mean, it's fine for what it is. I think it's a decent little sequel to the first movie, and it does fix a lot of the problems that were in the dub of the first film in general. But I won't say it's anything too classic or anything too amazing, but it's fine for what it is. I think it delivers what it promises, and it's just there, I think, to be a movie where, the first movie was a success, so let's have a sequel to that, and let's try to fix some of the problems that we had from the first film that we could actually fix in this particular film, and I thought it did a pretty good job with it. It's fine for what it is, but it's one that I wouldn't say is a must-watch every time. But want to see a sequel to the first movie? Here you go, right there. Pokemon Mewtwo Returns.
The spirit of the forest has been captured. Celery is mine, and all of nature is under attack.
You're supposed to protect the forest, not destroy it.
But now, nature has a new hero.
Pikachu!
And every hero needs friends.
Celery!
Hold on! It's the biggest Pokemon adventure ever, and it's only in theaters. Pokemon Forever starts Friday.
Pokemon Forever centers around the new Pokemon Celebi, a one-of-a-kind veggie-like bug whose only kin are Celebi from other points in time. The movie begins in the past with a young boy named Sam attempts to save Celebi from a hunter. In an effort, Celebi uses his power and transports itself and Sam to the present, Ash Ketchum's time. Sam and Ash become good friends as they fight to save Celebi from the new Team Rocket villain, the Iron Mask Marauder, and his Dark Ball, which turns Pokemon evil and augments their powers to the maximum. Yet one rare Pokemon isn't safe without help from another. Thus enters Suicune, aka the North Wind. Notable about this movie is that it's the first film from Miramax when Warner Brothers sold the distribution rights off, and basically the Completion Bond company that pretty much screwed over most of the Miramax family films from the 90s came in and did the same thing with the Pokemon movies, and because of that, these movies suffered big time, and this film probably is one of the worst examples of it. You could tell when the Completion Bond company came in because there's bad CG effects in here. The story makes no sense whatsoever. It's like the same people that made the Pokemon TV series and the Pokemon movies beforehand had nothing to do with this, and it's the same people that ruined Tom and Jerry the movie. It ruined The Thief and the Cobbler. I mean, it ruined a lot of Miramax films that were completed under that Completion Bond company, which was bad from the beginning, but they came back with a vengeance, and this film just really got destroyed hard. Like, it was not a good film. It was probably one of the worst Pokemon movies yet, but we still have another Pokemon movie coming up in the spring, so maybe that'll change that. So, Pokemon Forever.
In a magical, faraway world, a secret garden protected by a prized jewel is under attack. Only one force is powerful enough to save the day.
Let's see what this baby's made of.
You're going to destroy the entire city! Now, Ash, Pikachu, and all-new, never-before-seen Pokémon, Latios and Latias, are about to team up and take on the ultimate challenge.
I can control the whole world from in here. We have to stop them. Good luck.
On a mission they never expected, to a world they never imagined, for an experience you'll never forget. This time, they're going to need all their power to save the planet and become Pokémon Heroes. Get ready for the most action-packed Pokémon adventure of all time. Only in theaters this spring.
Save the Pikachu, save the world, because of course that's what Heroes was. That was their slogan for that show when that came out 3 years later. Save the cheerleader, save the world. But that's not the important thing we're talking about right now. We're talking about Pokemon Heroes, which is notable for a couple of reasons. One, it's the 5th film in the Pokemon film series. 2, it's the first film to use digital ink and paint. Second, it's the second theatrical release by Miramax Films since they took over the Pokemon library and basically created it through the Completion Bond company they had. But most notably, it's the last film to receive a North American theatrical release for Pokemon until we get to Pokemon the movie I Choose You, and actually the last one to feature the main cast from the first 5 seasons until the CGI remake of the first movie. And in this particular film, you have the main characters, Ash, Misty, and Brock, continuing their journey through the Johto region. The main location of the film is based on Venice, Italy. The name given to the city is Alta Mare, meaning high sea in the Italian language. Although it's part of the group's adventure in Johto, the film takes place on an island off the mainland. The gang's trying to stop a pair of thieves hiding on the canals and alleyways of this place. Joining the adventures are 2 new Pokemon, a brother and sister pair named Latios and Latios, who are protected from the droplet of the heart, or protecting the droplet of the heart, a valuable treasure. And as the trailer tries to sell it to you, it's the biggest adventure of their lifetimes, and not exactly. And it's funny because the stories behind these movies from Miramax, the rumor is that Miramax actually bought the rights for $1 million and actually gave up 75% of the profits because Harvey Weinstein said that he could reinvigorate the franchise. Yeah, Pokemon was kind of going out of the zeitgeist around this time. I mean, now it's still popular, but back then when this thing was really booming at first, the novelty kind of wore off probably around after the third Pokemon movie came out, which was the last one by Warner Brothers. But I'll give it this. It's kind of better than the last Pokemon movie, Pokemon Forever, which had a lot of inconsistent flaws to it, a lot of continuity problems, a lot of ridiculous, stupid things that these different MacGuffins, these different things that they try to do, pulling Deus Ex Machinas to try to make the story make somewhat sense. But I like this one better than that one. I mean, I give it credit for at least trying to do something that is at least an adventure that seems like it's in the realm of a Pokemon adventure, and it has a script that really doesn't feel like it's all over the place. It's not a great movie per se, but the animation overall is still really good. I think the animation is still really good in this one, and the uses of digital ink and paint to make this work actually plays out very well overall. But despite all that, it's still definitely not a film that's worthy of. If you really want me to choose the best overall Pokemon movies, I would probably say that the movie 2000 and the third film probably are the strongest ones of the series. But by this point, like I said, Pokemon was kind of heading out the door from its first real time of success before it eventually slowly but surely made the comeback, starting in the later half of the decade, and now where it is now with like Pokemon Go and Pokemon Detective Pikachu becoming the successes that they were. I mean, nowadays, it's still very popular, but at the time, this was kind of around that time when everyone thought the zeitgeist was kind of dying out, and Pokemon was just going to become the fashion, what do I want to say here? The flavor of the month, if you will. But yeah, like I said, it's fine for what it is. It's not something I'd watch over and over again, but it's one that I would say I liked it better than the last one. I thought it was okay. I thought it was better than the last film. It's still one I probably want to watch on multiple occasions. If I was going to watch any one on repeat again, it'd honestly be the first couple of films, even though Pokemon the first movie has a lot of flaws to it as well. But those first three films are the ones I remember the most out of this series from when this was starting out. But everything else kind of after that is just kind of a blur, mostly. But like I said, Pokemon Heroes, at least it's better than the last one. I guess I gotta give it that.